Hey guys, it's Nena, and I'm really excited to talk to you guys today about my 5 favorite books that I read in 2015. So I was going through my Goodreads shelf and just trying to narrow it down, and I was like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna pick 5, my top 5, but I also have a few honorable mentions. So I'm counting any book that I read in 2015, but excluding any rereads. Not that I reread that many books in 2015. So I'm going to go through these in no particular order, but these are all books that I read this year and just absolutely loved. The first one on my list is The Martian by Andy Weir, and I read this right at the beginning of 2015, I believe. It was one of the books that I really wanted to read in 2014, but I hadn't gotten around to. This tells the story of Mark Watney, who goes to Mars with his crew. There is a freak dust storm that happens, and his crew has to evacuate, but during that process, he is hit by a piece of flying debris, and his crew thinks he's dead. So he gets left behind, but turns out he's not dead, and he has to figure out how to survive on Mars. I just love this book for, one, getting me interested in something that I wouldn't normally be interested in. You can tell that the author really paid attention as far as the science in the book goes, and he made that interesting for me, which I really appreciated. And then also, the character of Mark I thought was really hilarious. He's sarcastic and he's in a pretty terrible situation, but he has such a funny kind of wry attitude that you just can't help but root for him. I think really the tone and the pacing of the story really worked for me, so it was exciting, entertaining. I recently watched a movie while I was on break. I thought they did a really good job with the movie. Definitely captured some of the humor that's in the book, so yeah, I love this one, and I know many people have read this one and loved it too. For each of the books that I'm talking about, I thought it would be fun to read a quote that I really enjoyed from the book. So from The Martian, he says, "If a hiker gets lost in the mountains, people will coordinate a search. If a train crashes, people will line up to give blood. If an earthquake levels a city, people all over the world will send emergency supplies. This is so fundamentally human that it's found in every culture without exception. Yes, there are assholes who just don't care, but they're massively outnumbered by the people who do." And that was one thing I really enjoyed about The Martian. It shows the way that people come together in a crisis, and how so many people work together to rescue Mark Watney and bring him home. The next book I wanted to mention is Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. It's another one I read in early 2015 because I'd really wanted to read it in 2014. This takes place on Earth but in the future, and there is an epidemic that wipes out most of the population. So we see what happens as the epidemic is beginning and how people live afterwards. This one surprised me because it was not really what I was expecting. There'd been a lot of hype surrounding the book and I wasn't sure going into it, but I enjoyed it more than I thought it would, which is a good feeling. So in the book, we see what civilization is like after this epidemic that wipes out so many people and what people hold on to. There's a lot of discussion of memory and how people are remembered and what artifacts people choose to keep and to preserve in a new world. I think the genre is really interesting. It's a blend of literary fiction and science fiction. I've heard it called speculative fiction. I really love the writing in the book and the ideas that St. John Mandel explores. So my quote for this book is, "I've been thinking lately about immortality, what it means to be remembered, what I want to be remembered for, certain questions concerning memory and fame. I love watching old movies. I watch the faces of long dead actors on the screen, and I think about how they'll never truly die. I know that's a cliche, but it happens to be true. Not just the famous ones who everyone knows, the Clark Gables, the Ava Gardners, but the bit players. The maid carrying the tray, the butler, the cowboys in the bar, the third girl from the left in the nightclub. They're all immortal to me. First, we only want to be seen, but once we're seen, that's not enough anymore. After that, we want to be remembered." So you can see in that quote what I was talking about memory and how for the people who survived the pandemic, all they have left of the previous world really are their memories. It's just a really interesting read, and I think if you're looking for something that's an interesting blend of different genres, you should definitely pick it up. Okay, the third book, I know I'm going in no particular order, but this is absolutely number 1, my favorite book of the year. I just still have so much love for this book, and I want to push it on everyone, but I know that it's not for everyone. You guys know what book I'm talking about. It's A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. This is a story of 4 boys who go to college together and then move to New York, and it follows their friendship over several years, several decades actually. And I just absolutely love this book. The way that Yanagihara writes is it's simple in a way, but it packs such a punch. And that reading experience, nothing even came close throughout the rest of the year. I read this one in April. It took me basically all month to read it because it's a huge book. And also I just don't have tons of time to read. And I was really savoring it because I was so heavily invested, even from the first 25, 50 pages. I just absolutely loved the characters in this book, the way that she shows life, and the way that she shows friendships and male friendship. I like reading about friendship in general, and I feel like I haven't read that many books that explore male friendships the way that she did. So that was really interesting to me as well. But in particular, the characters. I mean, to me, they are real people. They're living out there somewhere, and I just absolutely felt for them in every sense. You guys have probably seen my review, so you know how much I love this book. Don't have my physical copy with me because I'm in California, but that is tabbed up the wazoo. But I still was able to find a quote that I wanted to read, so here goes. Friendship was witnessing another's slow drip of miseries, and long bouts of boredom, and occasional triumphs. It was feeling honored by the privilege of getting to be present for another person's most dismal moments, and knowing that you could be dismal around him in return. I'll say it again, I absolutely love A Little Life. If you want to hear me talk more about it, I will leave my long review of it down below, and if you only read one book that I talked about in this video, read this one, because it was my absolute favorite of the year. No surprises there. The next book I wanted to talk about is The Royal We by Heather Cox and Jessica Morgan. And this is written by the 2 women who run Go Fug Yourself, which is like a celebrity blog, and they talk about what people wear and kind of critique it. Anyway, the 2 ladies are hilarious. So I was really excited when I found out they'd written a new adult book this year. And I read it over the summer, and this book was just delightful. Inspired by the real life story of Kate Middleton and Prince William. Yeah, so it's inspired by that story, but it kind of, it puts its own spin on things, and I just loved the tone of it. It was funny, but the characters felt like real people with real emotions and, reacting in a way that makes sense. And there were just some really great side characters in it. Overall, it was just a really fun and enjoyable read. I was picking it up for a lighter read in the summer, and I thought it would be good, but I was just taken aback by it. It's well written and it's fun, but it's not insubstantial. It's just really nice to find a feel-good read that also has substance. So I really enjoyed this one. Highly recommend it if you're looking for something lighter and funny and quirky and charming. And I think the quote that I picked kind of gives you the tone. This is a friend talking to the main character Bex, who is falling in love with the prince. And Bex says, "I don't even know if I want to shag him." Celia rolled her eyes dramatically. "Of course you do," she said. "You can lie about your feelings all you want, but for God's sake, let's not lie about that." I picked that one because it gives you a good idea of the tone and kind of the banter that goes on between these different characters. I'm not particularly a Kate Middleton fan, but whether or not you are, I think this one is really enjoyable. And last but not least on my list of top 5 is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. So I read Frankenstein for the first time this year. Somehow, all throughout school, I never read it. And I read it in October, right around Halloween. And it was just a matter of perfect book, perfect time, perfect setting, and it all came together for perfect reading experience, basically. Yeah, there's just something about reading the appropriate book at the right time, and when it just meshes like that, it's so good. I don't know. I don't think I'm explaining it very well. The writing, of course, is fantastic, and the story, I knew it was not like the pop culture stories of Frankenstein, but it was really great to find out what the story actually was and discover that Victor Frankenstein is actually a terrible person and feel this sympathy for the monster that he creates. And one thing I was thinking when I was reading the book is that, things could have been so different if just one person had shown him the monster, the creature, some kindness. All he wanted in life was just a positive human interaction, and he never got that. And things, and he does terrible things, but he just wanted a basic human connection, and that is not a crazy thing. So the quote I picked for that one is, "I do know that for the sympathy of one living being, I would make peace with all. I have love in me the likes of which you can scarcely imagine, and rage the likes of which you would not believe. If I cannot satisfy the one, I will indulge the other." The creature even says it himself. He says, I don't want to be this way, but the way that I've been treated has made me this way. And he tells Frankenstein, all I want is to be loved, but no one will treat him with just a little bit of kindness. So it's an interesting lesson to think about, and I just feel like I read Frankenstein at the perfect time this year, and I feel like it'll be one that I want to reread. Now for my honorable mentions, I want to talk about 3 YA series that I either finished this year or started and finished this year and just loved. First one is the Daughter of Smoke and Bones series by Laini Taylor. And this one I picked up because of, it might have been Karina. I think maybe I saw Karina do a review and I was like, oh, that sounds really good. So it follows a young girl named Karu, and she's kind of part of 2 different worlds. In one world, she's a normal girl going to school and she studies art, and in another world, she steals teeth and delivers them to her benefactor. And then at a point, these 2 worlds kind of collide and overlap, and Karu begins to realize where she's come from and what her background truly is. This series I loved for the world building. I thought the world building was excellent. I wanted to know more about it. Thought it was completely fascinating. I loved Karu as a character. She's strong but also human, and a lot of terrible things happen to her, and for a time she's broken by it, which I feel like is a very normal reaction. But getting to see how she develops over the series is really great, and there are really great side characters like Ziri. Love Ziri. What's her best friend's name? Susanna? Anyway, really great young adult fantasy series, and definitely gets an honorable mention for me. The next one I want to mention is Harry Potter, which I finished this year. I finished my first read through of the series. Woo! And it was just wonderful. It was bittersweet to finish the series because now I've read all of them at least once, so I will never have that experience again, but now I get to reread them. I read books 6 and 7 over the summer, and it was a perfect time. I just needed to escape and dive into another world, and I was happy to dive into the world of Harry Potter, which I was already familiar with by that time, and see how the series ended. And I also finished watching the movies, and it was just great all around. Love Harry Potter. So glad I finally read the series. And I think I said this before in another video, but it's never too late. If you've always thought, oh, I really want to read the series, but I don't know, time has passed, it won't be relevant. No. Just start the series, and I'm pretty sure you're going to love it. And then last but not least in my honorable mentions, I want to talk about the Lumatere Chronicles by Melina Marchetta. And this series I found because I was in the mood for YA, so I went to Mac's Well Done Bookshelves and was, okay, which YA books has he read and loved? And I saw this one on his list. I'd never heard of it before, and he gave it a really high rating. So I was like, alright, underrated read, let's go for it. This series is so good, and I don't know if I'm just not in the right circles, or, it's been out for a few years, so maybe the hype around it died down, but I've never heard anyone talk about this series, but it was so good. It starts off with Finnegan of the Rock, and Finnegan is a young boy who is living happily in the kingdom of Lumatere until the 5 days of the unspeakable, when the entire royal family is slaughtered and other people in his kingdom are killed and a curse is put on the kingdom. During the curse, half of the people are trapped inside and half of the people are trapped outside, and they cannot get to each other. So the book picks up 10 years later as Finnegan is traveling around the country and trying to make the lives of his people better and possibly find a new place for them to settle, but he's also hoping that one member of the royal family survived and that they can eventually get back inside the kingdom and reunite with their loved ones. That's the very tip of the iceberg, and the series takes off from there. These books have great characters, really complicated plots as far as the politics of the kingdom and the country, and also, you know, how all of these characters are tied together, because the first book follows mainly Finnegan, and then in the second book we move on to another character that we met in the first book, and then the third book is another character that we meet in the second book. And just the way that she tied all of that together across the series was, I thought, really well done. And just over and over in the series, we see people fighting for something that's bigger than them. People risk their lives for other people, for the kingdom, for just a better world for everyone, and that's really amazing to see. The Lumatere Chronicles is well written, well plotted, great characters. I mean, I think if you like YA and you like fantasy and you haven't read these, you should pick up the first one. Have not heard lots of people talk about them, but it's such a good series. I would definitely recommend it. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. It was really fun to look back and see the books that I really loved this year, and then just share a little bit about why I love them. I really enjoy watching these videos, so let me know if you did a similar top whatever of 2015 so I can check it out. Or if you just want to tell me what was your favorite book, or how many ever favorites you have, let me know down in the comments below which were your favorite books of 2015. Thank you again for watching. Happy New Year to everyone, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!